All right. Hey, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. We're a couple minutes past the top of the hour, so we'll kick things off. Hey, welcome first and foremost to all of our attendees today. We're super excited to talk to you about the July product release overview. And also thanks to 4Inc for graciously setting up this webinar so we can share information. My name is Ryan Hoover. I'm a product manager with I2 Group. And I'll be joined today by two of my colleagues, Annie John, who leads our North America sales team, as well as Mark Bingley, who is one of our senior UX designers. The agenda for today, I'll spend about 10 minutes walking us through just kind of a brief presentation that shows the highlights from the July product release, and then I'll hand it over to Mark. Mark's going to walk you through a live demo of a lot of the capabilities that I will be discussing. Please, if you don't mind, we don't have a massive group today, but if you do have questions, please post those to the Q&A channel. We'll attempt to answer those during the course of the webinar. Anything that we're not able to address today, we'll certainly take for action and follow up with you all with an answer if we're unable to do so during the webinar. So a lot of really exciting developments across I2 Group. The team's been really hard at work over the past months and years to bring us to this July release. Probably the most significant thing that we'll talk about is the introduction of Analyst Notebook 10. A lot went into that, and there's a lot of excitement around this new version of kind of our flagship offering. We'll also talk about the new model for the Analyst Notebook SDK, which was released in parallel with Analyst Notebook 10 in July, along with Analysis Studio and Analysis Hub. These were products that were formerly known as Analyst Notebook Premium and Enterprise Insight Analysis. Those were rebranded in December of last year to Studio and Hub, and there's a lot of new capabilities that we've recently introduced during the July release. And then last but certainly not least, we'll talk about I2 TextChart, which is our unstructured text analytics capability. So with I2 Analyst Notebook 10, this has really been a project that started several years ago and has now come to fruition. And that has been the complete modernization of the Analyst Notebook application to 64-bit. So in the end of July, for the very first time, we released Analyst Notebook as a 64-bit version of the application. There were really two driving factors behind that. The first is a lot of our customers we recognize are using other 64-bit software applications across their organization. And to achieve seamless interoperability, we needed to bring Analyst Notebook up to parity as a 64-bit application. The second kind of driving factor behind the introduction of 64-bit Analyst Notebook is to really set the foundation for future performance enhancements. So 64-bit applications can handle considerably more memory and compute power. So by modernizing Analyst Notebook to 64-bit, we've really set a really good framework to recognize future performance enhancements. As it stands today, analysts will be able to bring significantly more data onto the chart surface in Analyst Notebook 10, as you can see on the screen. And then we intend to continue to iterate and develop performance improvements over time with subsequent releases. In addition to 64-bit modernization, we've also introduced a lot of new capabilities to really answer what you all, our customers, have been telling us are things that need to improve across the product. So the first thing I'll kind of talk about are some of the enhancements that we've made to temporal and geospatial capabilities, as well as visualizations. We really set out with a goal to make I2 easier to use, make it a little bit more efficient and a little bit more intuitive. The first area that we've addressed with Analyst Notebook 10 is the introduction of modernized icons. So we haven't introduced new icons in the base icon set for several years. We recognize that the contemporary kind of modern intelligence analyst and investigator is dealing with a lot of new contemporary data types that didn't necessarily exist in 2007. So you'll see about 100 new icons within the set to capture new data types like kind of common social media platforms, IoT devices, smartwatches, Ring doorbell, that sort of thing, to really help you represent your investigative findings in the most accurate manner. The second thing I wanted to briefly discuss is histogram playback. Currently, or prior to Analyst Notebook 10, you could only play your histogram containing temporal data in the forward direction. Now you can actually conduct retrospective analysis of temporal data by using the new reverse playback feature. Time wheel. This is something that we had initially introduced in Analyst Notebook 9, and we've continued to make improvements to the time wheel. A couple things that we've added, increased options to add new granularity for how temporal data is displayed within the time wheel. And then we've also added the capability where the analyst can now select an option where they can choose to have the chart surface and the time wheel automatically pan based on one of those sectors that the analyst selects within the time wheel. The last thing we've done to kind of enhance the geospatial experience is to modernize the capability to 64-bit so that an analyst can actually take data that's contained on the Analyst Notebook chart that has geospatial properties and export that as either a KML or a KMZ file, and then they can bring that into Google Earth to visualize that data geospatially. One of the other nice things about this export feature is if you've applied a particular icon to the chart surface in Analyst Notebook, when you export that data and send it to Google Earth, it will actually persist that icon representation, so it will show up in Google Earth as well to provide kind of analytical continuity. So a lot more to Analyst Notebook 10. Mark's going to demonstrate some of these features, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but I did want to just highlight them so you could start thinking about it. The first thing that we did with Analyst Notebook 10 was to refresh list data records. So we've really modernized the look and feel. We've added new capabilities to facet data and filter data and search for information that the analyst has brought into that tabular view. And we think that's really helped to kind of streamline the user experience so it's more consistent with the other features and functions across Analyst Notebook. We've also added additional selection tools. One of the things that our customer said was, oftentimes I bring a lot of data into the chart and I identify these kind of irrelevant data points that are singletons. It's a data point that doesn't have any connections. So we've introduced a new tool where you can just quickly select singleton entities and declutter the chart. We've also brought back a tool that used to be part of Analyst Notebook. We've refreshed it, written it in 64-bit, and that's the highlighter tool. Mark's going to demonstrate how this can help analysts really select targets of interest on their chart surface and call those to attention for presentation and analysis. And then the last thing, we've introduced a few additional options for conditional formatting. So now the analyst will have additional control over how they apply rules that or automatically style records on the chart. So now they can actually select new conditions. So if they want to highlight the fact that data is not necessarily present in a particular property or attribute class, they'll now have the ability to do that with conditional formatting. So in parallel with Analyst Notebook 10 and that release and all the capabilities that were included, we also have introduced a new version of the software development kit for i2 Analyst Notebook. So this new SDK really introduces enhanced features and functionality. It enables a software developer to extend custom capabilities to Analyst Notebook 10 by writing new 64-bit plugins. Additionally, the SDK for customers who have built 32-bit plugins, the new SDK contains utilities that really help that developer to seamlessly upgrade the plugin so that it will continue to work with the 64-bit version of Analyst Notebook. We're also bringing the SDK under a new annual subscription licensing model, which is different from the prior SDK, and it's also centered around an individual project or plugin. The SDK licensing includes the SDK utilities, an activation key that enables that plugin to compile with Analyst Notebook 10, and then we also provide a copy of Analyst Notebook 10 for development and test purposes. The next thing we wanted to talk about briefly is software license management. So for the first time, we've introduced this to the product set, starting with Analyst Notebook 10. Software license management, it really gives both our customers and I2 group better visibility into product utilization, which really helps to ensure compliance in both directions. We recognize that our customers have a lot of different environments that they operate within, and so we've accordingly created several different options to implement software license management with Analyst Notebook 10. The first, for customers that have access to public internet, there's a cloud-based model for license management. For customers that have an interest in deploying a server on their premise to manage license entitlements, there's an option to do that. And then lastly, for our customers who operate in kind of disconnected and low latency environments, there's a standalone license management option to support that mission environment as well. I'm going to cover this at a very high level, but we've created a lot of really good detailed content that further explains license management. So if you go to the I2 Group YouTube channel, there's about a 15-minute tutorial that walks through what each of these options look like. And then also, if you go to the I2 Group knowledge base on the website, we have an FAQ that contains additional details. All right, so I mentioned this at the beginning. Pretty much our newest product is I2 TextChart. This was introduced to the portfolio by way of acquisition last year, and it really helps analysts to integrate unstructured text analytics with Analyst Notebook. So an analyst can take raw unstructured source data. So think of this as a Word document or a PDF. It could be a significant activity report. It could be an intelligence information report, drug seizure report, really anything that's in an unstructured format. You can take that information, you can bring it through the TextChart engine, and it will automatically tag entities and relationships within that unstructured data. It recognizes hundreds of different languages, and then the analyst can actually, with the simple click of a button, take all of those entities and links that have been tagged within that unstructured data, click a button, and then visualize that within Analyst Notebook. This isn't a brand new capability, but what we've done in the July release is modernize the plugin that enables interoperability between TextChart and Analyst Notebook. So now TextChart is compatible with Analyst Notebook 10. And then in addition to everything we've talked about so far, we've also released new versions of both Analysis Studio and Analysis Hub. So these are our server-based product offerings that are really geared for kind of our work group and our enterprise customers. All the capabilities that I've mentioned with Analyst Notebook 10 are also available in Studio and Hub, and then we've also added some additional capabilities. The first is visual query over connected data. Previously, analysts could only perform advanced visual queries on top of data that has been brought into either the information store or into iBase. We've extended this capability, so now our capabilities include a VQ-aware connector service, so that with the help of professional services, a customer can configure visual queries to run on top of data that isn't ingested into iBase or the information store. So really powerful new capability that came out in parallel with Analyst Notebook 10, and this is included in both Studio and Hub. The second thing we've introduced is Desktop 360 View. This is kind of the quick baseball card target of interest view where it automatically populates a particular target and all the links with that target, highly configurable based on a specific user requirement. Previously, this capability was only available within the Investigate add-on. We've now introduced this to the desktop as well. This will perform on top of any data that has been ingested into the information store. The last thing that we've introduced for Analysis Hub is dynamic user security. Essentially what this does is for enterprise customers that already have third-party tools that are in place to manage user access and role-based controls, such as Microsoft Active Directory. Now that actually integrates with the i2 server to allow a much more seamless, less rigid experience with respect to controlling user access to data. And then also included currently as a feature of both Analysis Studio and Analysis Hub is i2 Notebook. So we've continued to invest a lot in expanding the capabilities of i2 Notebook, and this is the lightweight browser-based analytical capability. One of the gaps that we've closed in the July release is the ability to collaborate between desktop users and web client users. So Mark's going to show you how i2 Share enables collaboration via URL to very seamlessly share information across web client users, from desktop to web client users, and vice versa. One of the other things a lot of customers have asked about adding to the web client is the ability to display data in a tabular view. So Mark's going to show how Lists achieves that. And then additionally, the introduction of selection tools, which we're calling Explore, and that enables the analyst to really filter down on data that's been brought into the web chart based on the property of the link or the entity. And then the last thing to kind of round out the intelligence lifecycle, we recognize that previously the web client didn't have any way for an analyst to actually disseminate information and create finished intelligence products. So we're introducing the capability to export a chart visualization as a PDF, and then also export data in a structured manner via a consolidated Excel spreadsheet. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to monitor the chat as I'm sharing my screen, but Mark, I don't know if you want to call out, were there any questions that we can address now, or?
There's none in there at the moment, no.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, yeah, again, please drop any questions you may have in the Q&A. Otherwise, at this point, I will switch over to Mark. And Mark, why don't you take the screen and demonstrate the capabilities, please?
Okie doke. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, you can see my screen, I hope.
Yes, I can see it.
Looks great. Thanks, Mark.
It's always good to have that confirmation before I start. Right, so I've got a chart here. This is Analyst Notebook 10. I've got a chart of stuff that I've put together to help show some of these new features off that Ryan's just taken us through. So some of the first ones I'm going to show you are the select tools. Weeding out things that are not connected is very important. Ryan mentioned the ability to pick up singletons now. Simple click on the button here. So there are a few singletons in here. It would take a while to work out where they are. You'd have to probably rearrange the chart or do other activities to find them. Now you just click a button and it will find them, and you can do what you like with them, move them off or just delete them off the chart entirely. Nice feature, very simple, I know, but very effective, and it's something that was a gap. In addition to that, we've also got some semantic selection. So semantic libraries can be created by yourselves. So you can group together certain types of data that you think are related. So in this example, we've got a semantic type set up for property and another one for legal entities. So if I click those, it will just pick up off the chart all of the things that apply. I deselect that and go into all the properties, so that's bank accounts, vehicles, and phones, and you can see it then immediately selects them. So it's just different ways for you to do selection, rather than before you'd had to do each type one at a time and add them to your selection and grow it all up and then perhaps create a selection set. This enables you to just be a little bit more just quick, a little bit more sort of 1 or 2 clicks, and you get what you typically would like. Like I said, you can configure those to be whatever you like. Once you have them selected, you can then do some deselection. So having selected all of the properties, you could then say, yeah, but not the phones, take the phones off. So hopefully you'll find that quite useful. Another thing we've got is a highlighter tool. So typically, I mean, often you might style something to keep track of it. If you've got a particular bad guy or a particular node that you want to keep an eye on. We've got another tool here called highlight selection. So whatever is selected on the chart, if I give that a click, it starts to highlight it like this. I can now move my selection to other places, and I can go anywhere I like and do any other sort of activities along the way. But this will continue to sit on that one item, and it'll continue there until I turn it off. And then if I turn it on again, it will put it to where my new selection is. And as you can see in this case, I've got some links in there as well. So for some people, that might be quite a nice, handy sort of temporary on-the-fly way of keeping track of something. It's another tool to do that sort of activity. Ryan mentioned the list tool. We think that's it's a huge improvement over the previous one, which put all of the properties for all of the different types in one great big grid, which actually was a little bit difficult to work with, because quite often you'd have property types and property names on different types sharing the same name. So it's quite hard to sort of track what belonged to what. So we've introduced list records. It's so good, we put it on this bar because we think you're going to use it a lot. I'll show you how that works. I have to admit, I use it a lot, so I think it's a great tool. It starts off, it just analyzes the entire chart content. So here we are. This is all of the stuff I've got, entities at the top, links at the bottom. So if I just click on people, there's all my people, and then I can scroll along and have a look at the properties values of all of them. And of course I can sort by different different categories and different headings, etc. So that's all well and good. That's great. It enables me to sort of maybe sort all the mails together and then just pull those out, or just create some selection, because anything I select here, you can see the chart moving behind the scenes. And if I select more than one thing, let's do that and then hit the OK, it will then create that selection for me based on what was in that list. So it's all very interactive. I can just pop it back up straight away. There's all my people again, back where I started. I can also get some insight right from the start without doing anything else. It's showing me what are the most common things that people are linked to. So in this case, I can see that I have 63 people on my chart, and I can see that 38 of them are connected directly to this organization, Southwest Import Traders, and 5 are connected to Montego Import. And if I click on that, you'll see there is a list of that 5. And then if you find one that you're particularly worried about, like somebody called Ryan Hoover, for example, which is a really dodgy name by any measure, you can then hit OK and then find them on there. And of course, at that point, you can style them up and make them red because they're the bad guy. There we are. I can see Ryan's having a laugh. That's good. He doesn't hate me yet. Okay, so what else can we do with this list tool? It's very good for going across link data. This is the access to links. So there are lots of, in this data set, in this schema, we've got a lot of things that haven't access to. People have access to cars, bank accounts, houses, telephones, etc. So when you say, well, show me all the access to links, you're going to get a lot of different types. So what you can do here is then just do some sorting on the different types. So let's say you wanted to find all the things that people are connected to. You could sort on this column and then go down, and there's all the people. So people connected to bank accounts is now ordered. people connected to some phones there. So I could further sort by that column to get them all together. So now here I've got all the people who are connected to, well, sorry, here from this one here, actually, that one there, people connected to vehicles. I can make that selection and once again hit OK, and there they all are. So it's particularly good at going through links, and once again you get all of the properties of all of those different types, and also you get this connectivity. So you know, access to what? Well, access to Montego. There's that company again. So what has access to Montego? Well, there's a bunch of people, and there's a vehicle. Sorry, a property, and a couple of addresses. Sorry, bank accounts. I'm getting it all wrong now. Bank accounts. So it's a pretty good tool. One of the ways I use it the most is to actually find people. We've got this little text box up here. So if you put it on the type, you can immediately start typing and it will find within your data anything with that. So if I take that back and start typing in John, you can see as I type, that list is getting closer and closer, and enabling me to find things on the chart. Now, this might not be a big problem if you've only got 100 things on your chart, but if you've got a few thousand things, this becomes a very powerful accelerator, a quick way to find people. So I know I've got somebody called Nick Haley, so I can just type in Nick. There he is. Hit OK. Found him. He's also a bad guy, along with Ryan. So let's make him red as well. So yeah, list records. Feel free to ask any questions as we go through, and I can address them. If I do a selection here and open up list records, you'll see that this selection is reflected in this list here. So I can see in my selection I have 3 accounts, 2 comms, 3 people and a vehicle, and then some links. And of course I can just click on those and find those 3 that are selected straight away. And you can see that they're dressed up with a little orange dot, so you know that they are in your current selection. So it works quite well in combination that way. Right, so what are we going to do now? Well, Nick Haley, so he was identified earlier as being a possible bad guy. One thing that we do have now, this is a logged in environment with the Analyst server. So I have a data store behind it, and I can open up the 360 view of that record. 360 views is something that we introduced a couple of years ago. It began with our Investigate add-on tool, and it's now in our web client as well. And in AMB 10, we then introduced it to the desktop. For those of you that haven't seen it, it's a very powerful tool. We're basically focusing on that one record, and then we have curated queries here that are more than 1 degree. They can be like 5 or 6 degrees with conditions on. And these can be set up to ask the sort of questions that you typically want to know when you're looking at a record. So for example, this one here is criminal associates. So what this panel here has done is it's looked at the seed record, Nick Haley. It's looked to see whether he's ever been arrested for an event that was a crime, and then looked to see if anybody else was also arrested for that same crime at that same time. And if it finds that structure, just like a visual query, it returns that person there into the list. And you can then click on that person and pivot from there and go and have a look at them. So you can see now all of these have updated, and we can now see all the criminal associates of that person. You have different questions for different types of data. So if I click on a organization, I've got different panels here looking for different things, people who work there, businesses that do business with them. So 360 view, very, very powerful. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one now. It is very, very configurable and a really good accelerator, especially if you have analysts who are sort of at the beginning of their career and find, you know, visual queries perhaps a little bit intimidating, a little bit confusing. You can really help them along their way by setting up some efficient highlight queries in the 360 view. Right. So another big benefit of, another big feature that we introduced in 10 was the ability to share between our web client and our desktop. but you can also share between desktops. So let's just make a couple of other changes. I'm going to just pick up a couple of links here, and I'm going to style them as well. There we go. Now I'm going to select a subset of this data. So I'm just going to include those things I've highlighted. So there's a snatch of information. Now I can share that via a URL. I can share it with my colleague sitting next to me or in another location, as long as you're logged into the same server. They could be using desktop, they could be using our new web client, it doesn't matter. All you got to do is right click on the selection and hit share records. Now, what that does is it punts everything over to the server and creates a URL for you. You then copy that URL, and I'm going to open up an empty chart here. Let's pretend I'm a different user, and I'm going to open up a browser. Of course, it's a URL, so it would open up in a browser the moment the other person receives it. If you sent it by email or Teams message or Slack or whatever. So they click on that, and the first thing they're going to see is, well, they're going to be asked to log in because there is security, of course. So they log in, and they will see the contents of that package. So you can see there are 68 records within that little share package that I created. Because I'm on a Windows platform here, I can open it in the desktop app. So if I give that button a punch, it will then switch over to the desktop app and open up that collection here. I can then slice and dice it with my filters in the usual way, just pick out the people or do some weeding, or I could just grab it all and then copy it to my current chart, which is this one here. So there we go. There's all that data. And if you look at it, you'll see the stylings come over and also the position of it as well. The way it was over here on this chart has also been maintained. There we go. Let me just drag that over. Oops. There we go. So as mentioned, yeah, you might not be dealing with other people in the desktop client. So you might want to send that over to somebody who uses the web tool. So let's just do that. I'm sending this to myself in Teams. There's my link. Let me just get rid of that. Now I'm going to minimize my VM. I'm now on my Mac desktop. This is Chrome on Mac. And I'm going to go and find my link. Here it is. And I'm going to open that up. And then I'm going to log in. That's somebody else, different user. And you can see they have got the contents of that package, same set as before. They're not in a Windows environment, so they don't have the blue button to open up the desktop, but they can open it up in the web client. So I can copy that to a chart. Here's a list of my charts. So these are two I did earlier, or I can say new chart and open it up over there. So welcome, for those of you that haven't been here before, to the web chart. This is our i2 Notebook web client, and I'm going to open up and go back to the home page. I'm going to open this chart here. This is one I prepared earlier. Hopefully this is big enough for you to see. Is this big enough, Ryan? Can you read these, the text on these on the ribbon there? Okay.
Yeah, that looks good, Mark.
Okay, cool. Right, so here I am in the web client. So there's the main tools that we did for the most recent release was the list tool. So let me open that up here. Hopefully you'll see some similarities between this and the desktop one that I've just shown you. However, this one works in real time on selection. It's not modal like the one in desktop where you perform an action and hit OK and then it applies it. This one's in real time. So for example, if I create a selection of stuff here on the chart, you can see it immediately starts selecting stuff over here in the list view. So if I take that selection away, I'm on the people tab here. Once again, I've got all the properties and all the people, and I can start doing a selection, and you can see it starts adding them over here on the chart. I can also limit my my view here in the list tool to only show me things that are selected. So at the moment, I've only got people selected. So if I toggle that, it just goes down to just those people. However, if I do a bit more of a broad selection randomly, you can see now it's opened up all these tabs. All of these have got something selected. So I've got these vehicles, these addresses, these organizations. So it's a pretty good way of removing the noise. We'll just switch that back off. The other thing that I liked over in the other tool, which we've also got here, is that filter. So I can look for Nick again, and it works in exactly the same way. There's Nick. He's bad over here as well. So let's style him up. That's my style. I'll make him red, a little bit bigger. There we go. So let's take that one out. I can also explore all the links. So here are the access to links that we saw over in the desktop tool. We can see the same principle as before, and everything, all of these are sortable. So it's a good way of finding things that are connected together. The other tool that we've introduced is the Explore tool, and the actually works quite well in conjunction with the List tool. So over here, it is basically a way for you to select item types. It was born out of being able to say, select the people on my chart, select the vehicles. So there's all the vehicles, there's all the people. But rather than do it in a drop down from the ribbon bar, we thought, let's make a tool out of this. So there's all my people, lovely. I can then, in addition, I could say, right, let's all have the events and the organizations as well. And then let me see what's connected there. Once again, I could then come over to List tool and limit that down to just my selection. So see what I mean? They work really well in conjunction, these two tools. So it's very good for doing quick selection. There's all my access to links. One click, done. What we can also do is drill down. So let's say you wanted to find all the male people on your chart. So you click on people, it applies that limitation, that tag. I can come down here to gender and then click on males. Let's say I want males that are slim. There we go. There we go, slim males. And I can see there's some called Mark. There we go. There are the two Mark slim males. So yeah, a very good way of drilling down. There's a bunch more, and then with some keyboard shortcuts, I can see what they're connected to, move them around. Once again, I can share. I can create a share link here, and there's a URL. I could send that to anybody using the web client. I can send it to anybody using the desktop client, and they would get it in exactly the same way. Once again, with the styling, coloring. Okay, so yeah, it's a very powerful way of exploring your data. It's also, you'll notice we put some bars on here as well. Some people are a little bit more visual than others. I'm one of them. So for me, I find it quite nice if I create that selection set, I can see immediately just by glancing, I haven't got all the people. I've got roughly half the vehicles. I don't have to start doing maths on the numbers. I get a really quick feel just by glancing what I've got. Once again, not very useful on small charts, but when you're talking about massive charts of many thousands, which this can handle, these bars and numbers, they become quite big. So the bar charts become a very effective way of working out what you've got. Right. So the other things that Ryan mentioned are the export capabilities. Some of these are built into the List tool. So if I create a section of data, there we go. This is the person tab, just the people, but it's not just the selected people, it's everybody, all the people. You can see there's a download button here. And if I give that a click, that's going to download an Excel spreadsheet, which is going to have all those people in it. If I click this one up here, it's going to download all of my data for the whole chart. So if I just reset that and hit that button there, everything comes down. If I do a selection and limit that selection and hit that button, I'll only get my selection. So lots of ways of getting data out. So I'm just going to open some of those. They just downloaded. I'm just open up the Excel spreadsheet. Just doing it on my other screen there. So this is what it looks like. This is the one I've just exported. So there's the addresses, there's the events all in different tabs, there's the people. You can see all their properties are in here as well. And all the links. as well. So everything is in an export in a single Excel file. If I then do, here's another one. This was just the people all on their own. So some very effective ways of getting that data out if you do need to interact with another system, or if you just need to put that Excel file on, on a drive somewhere and keep it as a snapshot of your data at that time. These were all the properties on these things at that time. Save it. That's the way you can do it. The other thing we can do is the PDF. So let me just start a couple of things just so that you know we're not faking this today, because we'd never do that. This is live demos and we all know how great they work. There we go. There's a bunch of green things, and I've still got this red thing over here. So I can now click this button, export PDF, and that will create a PDF of that chart. Now that sounds simple. It's just downloaded over here. Let's just open that up. Here it is. That sounds very simple, but it's actually very effective, because previously you were only able to do like a screen grab. And of course you're limited then by the resolution of your monitor and the size of your monitor. Whereas what this will do is grab a very high resolution version of whatever the chart is. So you can see, I can still read the labels of these items that were quite small in that image. In fact, they were so small they weren't even being shown on the chart when I took the picture. So yeah, if you are in the world where your output is creating a chart that explains a story, you are one click away from getting a nice shiny PDF to put in your intelligence report. Right, I think that's everything. I would like to just pop back over to my VM, back into the wonderful world of desktop, and just got a minute or so. Just going to have to wake this one up. There we go. Let's get rid of the share. Just wanted to point out the time wheel and these enhancements that were discussed earlier by Ryan. You can now change the scale of them. I don't know if everyone on this call has had a chance to use this tool yet, but it is a very, very effective way of getting an overview of temporal data. This particular view, we've got a 24-hour clock on days of the week. So let's just make that a bit bigger. So I can see at a glance, I can see, well, of course, there's not much activity here because people tend to sleep during those periods. And we can see that there's been some calls made on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. And I can see exactly what that call was. And I've got my record inspector up over here, and I can actually see there were 15 calls made in that period of time. And I can go and look through the details. It's a very powerful tool, and you can change what these sectors represent. So you can change it to days of the week and let's say days of the month. So it depends what you're looking for. And of course, you can change the style of it. Once again, this is all down to your presentation. If you're going to look at, if you're going to put that, take a screenshot and put it into a report, and you don't want it to be red because red is bad, then you can change it to something more pleasant, like green, because green is good. We all know that. Okay, I think that's everything, Ryan. If you're, I don't know if there's any questions or if anybody wants to speak up, feel free. If not, I can hand it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That was great. Taking aside the fact that I was one of your primary targets of interest throughout the demo. But aside from that, it was really good. Thanks so much. Yeah, folks, I don't see any questions, so I think we'll move on. We just have one more topic that we wanted to briefly cover. If you do have any outstanding questions, again, please drop them into the Q&A. We'll answer them, or you can get with us offline if you'd prefer to engage that way. So let me take the screen back. All right, cool. Mark, are we good on the screen?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so just to close, this is just step one into the world of 64-bit Analyst Notebook and all the associated capabilities that we've developed and released in July. there was some disinformation kind of that has been pushed out on a few different social media platforms. So we just wanted to be very clear about what's coming next. So we made a conscious decision for the July release to conduct additional testing to make sure that 64-bit Analyst Notebook was interoperable with iBase. We are actively working to resolve that compatibility gap with an aim to have a solution delivered before the end of the year. So that is our primary focus on the product and development team as we move forward into the second half of 2023. We are not doing away with iBase. iBase is going to be a continued investment as part of the portfolio, and we're working to make interoperability happen between 64-bit Analyst Notebook and iBase. Additionally, we're removing some of the legacy technology dependencies that exist within iBase to kind of streamline that process. And then lastly, we're working towards adding new compatibility between ArcGIS Pro Desktop alongside iBase. So still a part of our portfolio, still something that we recognize a lot of our customers derive value from, and is certainly something that we're going to continue to invest in moving forward. I do see one question in the Q&A. So Jim asked, do you have any demo connectors that show VQ?
Yeah, I just put an answer. I was just typing an answer out. I don't actually have any set up on my build today, so I can't demonstrate it. But if you're familiar with Visual Query over a document over a repository, it will actually work in exactly the same way. So once it's been configured by somebody who knows how to do that on your side, or with our help, which we can do, you'll then just you'll have a Visual Query window up, and you'll be able to create your structure and then send that query to that external source. So it works in the same way. Unfortunately, I can't show it today. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Mark. No, I think that addresses it. Let's get another question. Can you provide a link to the software license management FAQ on the i2 knowledge base?
Okay, there was a link of your YouTube, wasn't there, in the presentation, and then the i2 knowledge base. Let me go and find that for you. Leave that with me. I'll do it now.
Yep, we'll drop that in there. Thanks, Eric. Well, do we have any other questions before we wrap? I think we can, Trisha, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can take people off of mute if they want to raise their hand.
Yes, that is correct.
Question aloud. So we'll just pause there for 30 seconds to see if anybody wants to take advantage of that.
There you go. I've just put the link in.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And I see Christian has his hand raised. All right, Christian, if you have a question, it looks like we've given you the ability to unmute your microphone.
I think that hand went up very early on, so it's possibly an old hand.
Okay, no worries. All right, folks. Well, if nothing further, I think we're gonna call it a wrap. Thank you so much. I know many of you out there are doing extremely sensitive missions, important missions that help keep people in places across the globe safer on a day-to-day basis, oftentimes in resource-constrained environments. So we thank you for everything that you do for our communities and our safety, and we take great pride in playing a small part in providing tools that help you hopefully accomplish your mission with a little bit better efficiency and effectiveness. So with that, I think we'll close it out. Thanks so much. Have a great day. And again, if any other questions pop up, we'd be happy to address them moving forward. So we'll close it out there. Thanks so much. Have a good one.